So hello everyone on YouTube. What I'm trying to do here is a quick attempt at what you might call an unboxing of the Smiths Deluxe edition on CD. Okay, I'll just get straight to it. I'm not hugely fond of unboxings as such, but since this is a box set, it makes sense to show an unboxing. Um, so the thing actually doesn't unbox terribly easily. I'm doing this kind of steadying the camera, but in fact, as you can see, it's going to take two hands, but even then it doesn't. I'll be right back. So I'm using two hands now, and I'm struggling rather to get this damn lid off. Right, okay. So the lid does eventually come off, everything falls out, as you can see. Okay, so there's your box, and of course fans will know that the original was not quite this photograph, I don't think, and it was green with the kind of memorable pink lettering. There's nothing inside there. So, you know, an interesting take, going kind of monochrome and I think using a different picture. And so we kind of forgive them that, whoever designed this. That's the thing, it's very hard with this box set to find out who did what. I think the nearest they get is telling you that Morrissey, Marr, Rourke and Joyce were drums, bass, guitar and voice. Aside from that, it's very, very hard to find out anything about who did any mixing, mastering, why they did it the way they did, where they did it, and you'd think all that might be in this nice booklet, but this is literally just lyrics. And, you know, photograph after photograph of Big Ben. So, if you were a fan of the original album, I mean, you already have the lyrics, know the lyrics, and so on and so forth. So it would have been nice to have some sort of, 30-year retrospective. I know that pedants are going to tell me we missed the 30-year milestone, but still, it's 30 plus years since this album was out, and no kind of reflection here, nothing about how it was made at the time, why it's re-released now. Nothing about the mastering, although it's been yet again mastered, even though Johnny Marr apparently remastered the album a couple of years back. So there's a lot of oddities that are not explained, still not explained, and no attempt to go anywhere close to explaining them. Not much. It's the usual credits for production and so forth that we're probably quite familiar with if we ever owned Queen is Dead. The addition would be that the Live in Boston material was engineered and mixed by Grant Showbiz. Now, Grant Showbiz was the sound engineer. It's not his... it's kind of his showbiz name, actually. But anyway, he was engineer for the Smiths on the road and recorded an awful lot, if not everything, then a lot of what they did. He was the man in charge of the sound, so who better placed to stick a cassette into some recording machine or other and record the Smiths gigs, and that's exactly what he did. The rumour out there in myth land is that to catch the end of the gig, I guess he would generously flip the tape over at some point and then hit record again. So there was always a kind of a song that was maybe half recorded, not recorded as it might be, and bits of concerts missing and so forth, which is the best explanation any of us have heard for why this live gig, coming in at 50 odd minutes, whatever it is not the complete set. Of course, we're all kind of wishing we could have gone to a Smiths gig, those of us who never did, and it would be great to hear it as it happened, which you kind of do with this, but you are missing a song or two, whatever it is that the superfans would be aware of. And in that fact, I wouldn't even know if this is the correct running order, but Be that as it may, there's an awful lot of Smiths bootlegs out there. I have an awful lot myself, in some format or other, but the exciting thing about this, and I make reference to the Live in Boston disc in the box set here, because to me it's the most distinct thing about the whole box set. It has at least been handled, chosen supposedly, presumably, by Grant Showbiz as maybe the best of the lot, and worth kind of cleaning up and presenting here, and presumably it's been cleaned up as well as it can be. It sounds pretty good. I was quite pleased with it when I first listened to it. The more you listen to it, you spot its flaws. Maybe the bass isn't as loud or distinct as it could be. Drums come through perfectly fine. Plenty of sort of live reverb on the drums. And the guitars are, let's say rock and roll. They're not pristine in terms of sound quality and so forth. And Morrissey cuts through, of course, above everything else. So we've no problem hearing the lyrics. Although, of course, they're kind of dry. So it's really quite a raw, unprocessed. There's not so much that you can do after a recording like that. It's what I'd call a sort of official bootleg. And I'm happy enough with that. Of course, it's amazing that there wasn't more official stuff made available rather. But that's true of videos and all sorts of things with the Smiths. Again, kind of they've gone black and white. You've got your Queen is Dead spine on the rear. You've got it's a double disc set. This is your regular album, a so-called 2017 master. Now it doesn't say remaster, and if these words are important, then we might suppose that not much has been done since Johnny Marr remastered it. So I don't know. It's hard to get information exactly on that. Then we've got all these rarities. I had heard these all at one point and was pleased with them. So I haven't rushed to hear them again, because I know I had heard them on cassette, or I don't know whether it was 20 years ago or whenever it was. But they're different enough to be worth a listen. And then you've got a few sort of B-side sort of things there. Okay. Really not much else to say. The hearing is believing, so I would urge you all, if you have the album, you'll have heard it, and I think they are sort of worth the purchase. So these alternate takes, demos and so forth, they sound pretty good, they're pretty interesting. It's interesting to see how they sort of put things together. Clearly they chose what they chose in the end for the album and discarded these. And your credits there are the usual, so they're sort of photo credits and so forth. So this is Alain Delon, sort of 60s heartthrob. Turned out my mother had his poster on her wall, which is a little bit of trivia there. Now, shockingly, we've got Big Ben again. Presumably that's where the Big Ben kind of theme comes in for the rest of it. And then we've got this kind of recent, and I say, really relatively recent photo of this protester who happened to be wearing a Hatful of Hollow t-shirt. And I know Johnny Marr was pretty pleased with this picture, and I think we all liked it at the time in the press and so forth. Students protesting the size of their loans or something. And so it was great. I think we need an awful lot more protests in this country. It's a shame when it's only students. But anyway, goodness knows I've got enough to protest about in 2017. Whether this side of the pond or the other. But the thing that was always talked about and cherished with The Queen is Dead, when you opened the gatefold on the LP, what did you get? If I recall, it was the Salford Lads Club picture. And so we might have liked to have seen that reinstated, or we might have liked to have seen other pictures from those photo sessions. Would have been an interesting idea. This one, well, it's like, I think we would have to say, great image, would do on some kind of Smiths compilation or something, but I don't know that it does belong with The Queen is Dead. That's my opinion, but you've seen it now and form your own opinion. So that's the album, 2017 version. and your various rarities, demos, that type of stuff. There we are. So, I mean, I was pleased enough with that. Like I say, not too pleased with this booklet because it could have been filled with lovely photos of the lads and some kind of, you know, little piece written by someone, Stuart Marconi or whoever, I don't know, someone who professes to be a Smith's kind of documentarian or whatever. So then we've got Live in Boston. I mean, really, that is these pictures are I forget now. They're Allen Ginsberg, probably says somewhere, but Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and William S. Burroughs are involved. I think I forget who's who. I mean, they're okay. That's sort of in keeping of the sort of tradition of the Smiths to have these kind of cultural figures on their, or pop cultural even, on their albums. So let's see. So that was recorded August '86. I know that people will say that the best Smiths album, live album, was the only one, which was Rank. Rank was, if I recall, Brixton, live in Brixton, if I remember. Or it could have been Kilburn, I forget. Rank was an incomplete offering. There were tracks missing off that, and it was recorded for a BBC radio show. So in that to that extent, I think it's a better recording sound quality wise. But of course, you were missing some classics off of Rank, like How Soon Is Now. That joke isn't. That joke isn't funny anymore. Is on here now. There are live versions of that kicking around. I think there were some official ones as B-sides. But for it to be on here is really nice. It's a good set. I like this disc a lot. Pleased to have had it. So all in all, that's another bit of good value, shall we say, for the package. So this is kind of disappointing. This looks to be maybe a still from the Derek Jarman film. It's a kind of high definition version of the album. I think you have to listen very, very, very hard to hear the difference to a CD. There is maybe a slight difference, but you know, whether it warrants, you know, if there could have been something else in this box set other than that, I think a lot of people would have welcomed it, including lots of people say that why not have a 5.1 mix? Well, not everyone has a 5.1 setup, and also I think 5.1 tends to be a little bit more for the prog rock kind of, you know, psychedelic and Pink Floyd and kind of audiophile enthusiast crowd. Which isn't necessarily the Smiths crowd, so I can see why they maybe didn't go to the extra lengths to have it kind of flying all around your head and for sounds to come out behind you and all that sort of stuff. For the Smiths, it's possibly not quite that thing. I mean, you know, compare it to say a 5.1 of Sgt. Pepper. I mean, you know, which did come out this year. I'm not sure that Queen is Dead sits in that category. Don't get me wrong, I would have loved it, but that's me. I can see why it's not absolutely essential to have a 5.1 mix of The Queen is Dead. But I would have liked different videos. I was never a fan of the Derek Jarman stuff. It's all sort of shaky, kind of frenetic, grainy, and whilst those things are kind of, what can we call it? Whilst those sort of stylings are great in small doses, it strikes me that the whole sort of 15-20 minutes worth of this sort of Derek Jarman and colleagues footage is just all sort of camera effects and kind of processing effects, and the content not a great deal that anyone can relate to or otherwise. The band aren't in it, as lots of people say. It's a lot of jerky kind of. It's just not my thing. Not for this music, not for, you know, presumably it was blessed by the band and someone thought it was a good idea, and if you love that Derek Jarman stuff, then it's probably nice to have it in this box set. I know a lot of people would have liked to have had a Smiths concert. There isn't much of it about, particularly not from the Queen is Dead album and tour. you know, a lot of the TV stuff that was broadcast in full from concerts was kind of 84, 85, as I recall. So I wondered whether they're saving that stuff up for a Meet His Murder reissue. So yeah, there's just the one disc in the last sleeve there, and it's the 96 kilohertz 24-bit version, and 3 films for Panic, There Is a Light, Queen is Dead. Take it or leave it, I would say, with those. They're not astounding music videos, in my opinion. So that's it. I didn't like paying what I paid for it, but I thought, oh dear, if it becomes collectible in future I'll end up paying even more. But there are definitely better box sets in terms of being interesting, in terms of how it's been remixed or remastered or packaged or written up or extra. You know, the booklet in particular is very poor indeed. And so in terms of the kind of cashing in attitude that there's been towards this, I would say it's true. It's as if nobody's shown any interest at all, really. None of the band have any say on this. No producers, nothing. I mean, we would have liked some documentaries. In fact, I seem to recall around the time of Queen is Dead, there was a bit of documentary footage here and there, or even some new photos, or just anything, basically. But I'm not as disappointed as I sound. It's really nice to hear this great music in as high a quality as it really gets, and to have a little bit of extra material there in terms of the gig and the demos, all in one place, all in one box, in a sort of commemorative kind of style. I think everyone will have an opinion of how they would have done it. I think perhaps many of us fans would agree on what we would rather have seen. So yeah, it does seem an odd thing, but then you've got to ask, how often does anything from the Smiths come out? And the answer is not often at all. And how often do we get a Smiths live album? It's nearly 30 years since Rank. So if we've got to wait 30 years for each live, official Smiths live album, then I guess we've got to appreciate this for what it is. So you've seen it, you've heard a lot of my opinion. I would say more and include more of my own kind of experience and trivia with all of the songs, but my battery's running out and I can't find my tripod and what have you, so I hope that's of some interest to some of you, in case you were wondering. It sounds as good as you would want. As an official bootleg, the Boston concert is, you know, it's kind of like being there. It's kind of like being the sound engineer and being there. And so my appreciation really goes out to Grant Showbiz, and I would wish that we could get more of his material. But I'm just trusting that we've been given the best on this occasion. Anyway, thank you. I don't do many of these. I won't be doing many more. It was just one that I kind of had an opinion on. So there you go.